Sometimes the future doesn't arrive with a loud bang. It slips in quietly through tools we can't see but feel everywhere. Artificial intelligence is one of those forces, listeners. It's reshaping industries from the ground up, and in sectors like retail, cosmetics, and franchising. It's not just streamlining processes, it's redefining what's possible. But behind the technology are real people, building visions that merge innovation with trust, growth with governance, and beauty with accessibility. Listeners, welcome to this another interesting conversation on the AIBiz podcast. I am your host, Sana, and my guest today knows this intersection intimately. As CEO of Cosmetic, Australia's first accredited cosmetic clinic and one of its fastest growing aesthetic brands, he has pioneered a national franchise model, empowering healthcare professionals to become owners while expanding the reach of non surgical cosmetic services nationwide. From data backed trends in beauty to the business mechanics of scaling with AI, today we are going deeper into how technology isn't replacing the human touch, it's actually amplifying it. So, with that, listeners, meet my incredible guest, Vivek Eranki. Vivek, welcome to the show, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Good evening, Sanat. Thank you for having me on. Great to be with you.
Awesome. So Vivek, to begin with, let's talk about how AI is becoming such an internal part of industry shift. I mean, it is often framed as a disruptor, but in your experience, is it more of a partner when it comes to retail, cosmetic, and franchise growth?
We look at AI more as a partner than as something that replaces human beings and replaces existing systems. And the reason for that is, if you think back, we've had AI in some form for a considerable amount of time. So even on Google Maps many years ago, it used to change the map or change the directions based on the traffic flow. I mean, that's a older version of AI. But
Yeah.
as AI and the underlying infrastructure becomes more and more powerful and it's becoming more and more accessible, we are finding that it's a very good partner when it comes to everything from decision making at a business level down to a decision making at a patient level.
That's actually very interesting, Vivek. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, AI has been there, maybe not in that advanced level, at that advanced level, or a more obvious way. But yes, and also when it comes to when it comes to cosmetic, uh, can you share any tangible example where AI directly influenced a major decision or changed a business outcome for you?
That's a very good question. So, Cosmetique is a series of clinics around Australia. We now have 20 clinics around the country. And we've recently opened the doors for franchise partners, and these are mainly medical personnel, so doctors and nurses. And if I focus on the interface between the patients and the clinic, which is essentially the doctors and nurses, we found that AI actually had a seismic shift in the way that doctors and nurses are able to understand what's happening. So if you look at medicine in general, just in 2024, there's been about 5.1 million articles that have been released in peer-reviewed journals. And so there's a huge staggering number of new data coming in. But the problem with the data is there's a spectrum of credibility in the data. So you can have everything from a meta analysis on one side down to somebody's opinion on the other side. So AI has been really good in the cosmetic field in terms of analyzing all the data, firstly. And secondly, looking at the data and then looking at how that affects this practitioner and within their scope of practice. So they're able to then, AI is able to then condense that data into what the practitioner, the doctor or the nurse specializes in. and how that
Hmm.
is relevant for them. So what it
Hmm.
basically is doing is it's from all of the noise out there that it is very efficiently picking out the nuggets. Something that would take a human being hours and hours to do is literally being done in seconds. And this is why I think AI is an amazing augment to people rather than something that replaces the people.
Hmm. No, I think that's a very, very credible point you made because there has been a lot of hate around AI, which is to some extent is uh, uh, credible. But then at the same time, I think from the perspective of enhancing efficiency and the output time, the time required for data analysis, data visualization, I think AI has been making huge leaps in that. It has been a really, really, huge help actually, a huge relief. And with the data that you mentioned around the researches, the papers, the data, I think in terms of in the medical perspective, if I think about it, I think that's a very major, boon, major accelerator. Now, if I come to the cosmetic sector, Vivek, it relies heavily on personal connection. I mean, it's a pure, human facing, front facing industry. How do you ensure that AI driven efficiencies they don't dilute that human experience? I mean, how do you kind of establish that connection between AI driven processes or insights with how you can translate that into, when interacting with humans?
It's a very good question. So the cosmetic sector, unlike other sectors, so I've worked in many different parts of healthcare, so everything from trauma surgery down
Yeah.
to emergency medicine. And when you look at something such as, say, for example, trauma surgery, it's quite
Mm.
binary in that you have a injury, let's say a fractured arm, and then what needs to happen is a fractured arm needs to get repaired. So it is the amount of communication needed is minimal. There's a problem, that problem needs to be solved. Whereas in the
Mm.
cosmetic sector, the issue is you're not actually solving a problem. The issue is you're using medicine and your training as a doctor essentially to provide an elective treatment to a person that otherwise has no underlying medical condition. So you're relying purely on communication in order to make sure that the patient's aesthetic needs are perfectly correlated with what the doctor or the nurse comprehends and what they're able to do. And this meeting of minds can sometimes be a bit more complicated, especially in a country like Australia or America or UK, which is very multicultural. And what we found with AI is it helps. For example, we use AI for translation. If there's a patient whose first language isn't English, AI can be used to translate the communication between the doctor or the nurse to the patient and vice versa. That's been phenomenal for us. But more than that, there's a lot of pioneering technology coming out in the cosmetic space, mainly out of places like Korea and China, where you are able to take a photograph of yourself and then add the treatment that the patient wants to see what the end result would look like. And this visual representation of the patient's aesthetic ideals helps better communicate what it is that they're after to the practitioner. So this removes the gray space and this removes the human unknown between those communications. So again, it's a really good augment to what we do, rather than something that replaces the bond between the doctor and the patient. It strengthens it. Is how I see it.
Wow. And especially the predictive part of how AI can function, and of course the language translation. I think these two they have they are really really interesting insights, specifically in the cosmetic sector. And can as you mentioned about the Korean and the Chinese cosmetic industry trends. Um, I'm not sure whether this question is valid or not, but let's go with it. Can AI predict, Vivek, the next pouty lip moment or aesthetic trends Still more art than science?
I think Kim Kardashian predicts healthy lips more than AI. I don't think there is enough artificial intelligence in the world to
Yeah.
predict what Kim Kardashian will do next. But jokes aside, um,
Mhm.
if in places you have to consider what trends are. So there are places that are trendsetters and there are places that are trend followers. So Australia, for example, is a trend follower. So for us, we are able to forward project what will be popular in 2, 3, 4 years time, but by looking at countries such as the US, by looking at countries such as the UK, Korea, Taiwan, um, Latin America, parts of Middle East, by looking at those areas, we're able to see what's going to happen next. So for us, it's quite simple. For places that I just mentioned, I would say that it's going to be difficult because there is a element of cultural influence infused
Mhm.
with what is essentially an evolving aesthetic picture, and for that reason it's complicated. So and if you look at what historical trends of beauty are, they've never been constant, they've always been evolving. So for that reason, I don't think AI can perfectly predict what the next big thing is in those
Mhm.
countries, but it would easily be able to do that in a country like Australia.
Hmm. That's a very important distinction. Very important distinction. Um, and then now with many franchise partners being former staff, and then this is specifically on franchise empowerment because it's a very um capital intensive, if I can say. How is AI helping them transition from clinicians to successful business owners? Like there will be multiple stages involved here, like training, knowledge transition, or setting up a business, the basics in there. How exactly does that work, Vivek?
So firstly, we always because of my background in healthcare, funny enough, my whole family is in healthcare. So
Okay.
because of that, we always want to empower doctors and healthcare professionals transition into the next phase of their profession, which is being business owners. So we never want doctors or nurses to stop being medical. We want them to have the doctor-patient relationship as the center of everything that they do. So this is where we come in providing the business and the administrative support. And when you look at what business and administrative support are, it is essentially data driven, right? So, for example, in Australia, you have multiple states. Within the multiple states, you have differences in demographics, we have differences in ages, and hence there is a difference in what the core consumer or the patient desires. By looking at these distinctions from a data perspective, we are able to ascertain exactly who their core audience is through the health practitioner, so they're able to better focus on that demographic of people rather than applied in a completely blinded way. So this is where AI has been amazing. So for example, in for us, different clinics have different opening times. They have different services that are involved. There are different male to female ratios. There are different ethnic mixes. So for example, in Melbourne, you find a lot more South Asians and East Asians coming in compared to places such as Queensland. And
Right.
so these are important distinctions for the practitioners for us to provide them so they can just focus on being doctors.
Hmm. Oh, I think this is where I believe AI has its biggest power, closing skill gaps as well as assisting with laser focused insights that might have taken years to learn the hard way, door to door surveys and discussions. That's just something very very interesting. Um, and before we conclude, now of course, there's franchisee. Then there is trying to understand the different trends or having that distinction as well. Then leveraging AI, but then at the at the Uber level, Vivek, with nearly 20 clinics and then more opening monthly, how do you ensure the brand stays consistent when all these factors are playing their individual role?
We always stay true to our core message and our core demographic. So in this case, the core message is always patient safety first, right? So we are the country's first accredited cosmetic clinic. We are the only cosmetic clinic in Australia that mandates somebody have both external and internal training before they see a single patient. So our core message underneath everything is safety first, then compliance, and we find that that is essentially ensures patient safety. So no matter how many franchisees we get on board, that never changes. So our policies and procedures are very stringent in that before a nurse touches a patient, before any patient treatments happen,
Mhm.
multiple checks and balances happen by multiple senior members of staff or trusted associates in order to ensure quality is there. That's the first thing. The second thing is we never try and be everything to everyone. So if you look at some of the other cosmetic clinics, they provide something like 60, 70 different treatments. We provide 10 treatments and we are very busy and very happy with that. And the reason for that is that if you know exactly who you are, the customers know exactly who you are. And that helps people identify you and you identify your patients, and hence there's better synergies.
Hmm, that makes sense. That makes sense. And do you believe AI can help maintain brand integrity, or is that still something only strong human leadership can protect?
Human leadership sets the culture in the company. And the
Right.
culture of safety, the culture of governance can never be set by AI. That has to be set by humans, and that needs to be set by a human that is arrogant enough that they know exactly what the right answer is and what the wrong answer is. And they need to be comfortable enough to say no to things that they believe are not in the patients, the companies, in their franchisees' best interest. That's what humans do. AI will never be able to do that. Now, in terms of setting up the brand, AI, I think, would be better than humans at that. So if you look at a lot of the advertisements coming out now, um, AI is pretty much responsible for a vast majority of them. And I would say that it hammers the branding much better than a human can. I would say that AI can come up with graphic designing, AI can come up with videos much more efficiently than a human can. So from a branding perspective, I think I think AI would far exceed a human. But in terms of telling AI what exactly the brand stands for, a human can never be replaced.
True, true. Yeah, I think that the fundamental remains same. The fundamental remains, the basics always remain the same. Just that, yes,
Exactly.
embracing of technology, it is essential because there has been a lot of negativity surrounding AI, as you mentioned about graphics and then video. But then at the same time, embracing technology because ultimately we do have that freedom of choice to control or decide whether we are using AI to control ourselves or just to make our lives easier and more efficient.
True. And Sana, if you look back in history, I mean, whenever there's been a quantum leap in technology, this has always happened, right? I mean, if you look at typewriters, when typewriters were around, computers first came in, there was a huge debate about, well, what happens to the typists? When internet came into the mobile phones, there was a huge discussion. So we've always been used to, as in we as in humans have always been used to technology surpassing what our perceived capabilities are. And
Mhm.
then there's initially some resistance, and then we find a friendly homeostasis where the technology actually benefits humanity. I mean, for all the disadvantages that social media has brought to the world, it's connected the world. So which means that you can now connect with your fellow human better than what you could do 30, 40, 50 years ago. So then if you look at how the Cold War may have been different, had there
Mhm.
been that level of connectivity, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it would have lasted as long. So I think same with AI. I think what's going to happen is I think there will be a time when AI will far exceed human intelligence, And at that point, what's going to happen is we as humans will actually learn to live with AI in order to surpass where we are currently. I don't think this is AI as a replacement. I think this is a massive augment that we will have in the future.
Hmm. That's a really good point.
I'm an
Vivek.
optimist.
Same here. Same here. And as you mentioned about social media, and this is my favorite question. Now, there, because cosmetic industry, it is. Um, I mean, you may not agree with, or you may. It's rooted in self-esteem, and AI can't truly understand that emotional nuance, and it's a serious limitation. So, do you see AI ever bridging that gap, or will it always require human interpretation and a bit of conscience as well? Because we often see discussions happening around appearance and just jumping on the bandwagon of trends, especially for young adults and teens. So what's your thought on this?
Look, there's a couple ways to look at this, right? So in terms of self-esteem, in terms of our perception of ourselves, I don't think AI will directly affect that, but I think it will indirectly affect it, and it already has. So if you look at what young people are exposed to nowadays, your social media feed
Mm.
constantly changes depending on who you are. So if you're a young person that is obsessed with the way they look, then the social media feed will reflect that. So at the end of the day, our message here is AI is an augment, and it unfortunately will augment the good and bad in everyone. And so this then opens up a wider debate as to, well, what do we do about it? And the thing is, every bit of technology does come with a cost attached to it. And I
Mhm.
think it's not a question of, I don't think regulators, I don't think governments, I don't think any of those bodies are able to do what people can do, which is understand this, have insight, and work on themselves, so they're not adversely affected by something that can positively affect them.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a balanced way to look at it. Oh, great. So Vivek, before we conclude, if our listeners they would like to um connect with you and explore more about cosmetic and also more insights around how AI can be or is becoming a game changer in retail cosmetics, what would be the best way?
Oh, well, I'm on LinkedIn. Just look me up. My name is Vivek, Vivek, and surname is Eranki, Eranki. Otherwise, our website as well, the Cosmetique's website, which is cosmetique.au. There's no .com in there. And yeah, we are always looking at ways that we can use our AI and large learning LLMs in order to better improve our business, our doctor-patient relationships, as well as patient communication as well.
Super. So that's really impressive, Vivek. I'll make sure to have all the links mentioned in the show notes. And thank you so much because I really loved your mindful and balanced, and also optimistic views on technology's value in beauty, retail, and franchising. I think these are very uh, much the basics, the core parts of the industry, and they really need to be uplifted with the benefits of AI and technology. So thank you so much for bringing this into the limelight.
Not at all. Thank you so much for having me.
So to all the listeners of AIBiz, if AI is the tool, then vision is the hand that wields it. As the cosmetic sector grows more sophisticated, the challenge isn't whether AI will change it. I believe it's whether we can guide that change towards something more human, more inclusive, and more empowering. And that's the future worth building. Until then, this is your host, Sana, and you have been listening to AI Biz, where innovation meets intention. Thank you.